Welcome to News Mongolia, where we bring you the latest stories and updates from across the nation and beyond. I'm Nataša. On the News Mongolia today, the Slovenian President Nataša Pirc Musar begins historic state visit to Mongolia for strengthening bilateral relations. Mongolia will be hosting the World Women's Forum to mark the centennial of the Mongolian Women's Federation. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Khalkha River. For the news, stay tuned. On the invitation of the President of Mongolia, His Excellency Khalkha, the President of the Republic of Slovenia, Her Excellency Nataša Pirc Musar, arrived in Mongolia on August 20, 2024 for a state visit. Upon her arrival at Chinggis Khan International Airport, President Nataša Pirc Musar, accompanied by her husband Aleš Musar and the Slovenian delegation, was warmly welcomed by Mongolia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Batsitsik Batmuh, and Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Slovenia to Mongolia, Alenka Suhadolnik, along with other officials.
Welcome to Mongolia.
The state visit commenced with an official welcoming ceremony at the Sukhbatu Square in Ulaanbaatar, where President Okhnagin Khurelsukh and his spouse Losundarjan Bolartsitsik greeted President Pirc Musar and her spouse. The two presidents and their spouses paid their respects to the statue of Chinggis Khan before proceeding to the State House, where President Pirc Musar signed the Book of Honored Guests. Following the signing, the two leaders held a private meeting. Throughout her visit, President Pirc Musar will engage in various significant events, including official talks with President Khurelsukh, where both sides will sign documents to enhance bilateral relations and cooperation. Additionally, President Pirc Musar will participate in the World Women's Forum in Ulaanbaatar, the Mongolia-Slovenia Business Forum, and the Fourth Sustainability Women Program. Mongolia and Slovenia established diplomatic relations on February 18th of 1993. Since then, the two countries have maintained friendly relations with cooperation expanding in various areas, including politics, economy, culture, and education. Mongolia and Slovenia share similar values concerning democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Both countries are committed to strengthening multilateralism and cooperation on global issues such as climate change, sustainable development, and peacekeeping. High-level visits and meetings between officials of both nations have contributed to a deepening of their political dialogue. Economic cooperation between Mongolia and Slovenia has been growing steadily, though trade volume remains relatively modest. Both countries see potential in areas like trade, tourism, agriculture, and technology. The establishment of the Mongolia-Slovenia Business Forum is expected to provide a platform for business communities in both countries to explore opportunities and further enhance economic ties.
This week, Mongolia, a nation committed to upholding human rights, freedom, justice and gender equality, is set to host the World Women's Forum on August 22nd to 23rd, 2024 in Ulaanbaatar. The event coincides with the centennial celebration of the Mongolian Women's Federation and is organized under the auspices of President Khurelsukh. The forum aims to foster dialogue on women's empowerment, gender equality, climate change, and the Sustainable Development Goals. The empowerment of women and gender equality are crucial for building fair, inclusive, and prosperous societies. These elements are also essential for achieving the SDGs by 2030. With the deadline fast approaching, the forum will underscore the importance of these goals, particularly in the context of SDG 5, which calls for gender equality and empowerment for all women and girls. Despite nearly 3 decades since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was adopted at the 4th World Conference on Women in 1995, its implementation remains incomplete. Major challenges persist, including increasing women's participation in decision-making, promoting employment and enhancing their economic capabilities. The forum will address these issues, emphasizing the need for global cooperation in building a world free of gender inequality. Women leaders from various fields, including heads of state, government officials, international organization leaders, UN goodwill ambassadors, businesswomen, artists, and athletes will participate in the forum. The event will feature an opening session, plenary meetings, and 6 thematic sessions, each focusing on critical issues related to gender equality and women's empowerment. The thematic sessions will cover a range of topics, including accelerating environmental action, the role of women in shaping food systems, achieving gender-equal economies, the impact of education in empowering women and girls, gender equality in sports, arts, and culture, and the role of women in the digital economy. The World Women's Forum will serve as a platform for women leaders to engage in meaningful discussions and build momentum towards the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action in 2025. A document with recommendations from the thematic session will be adopted at the forum, contributing to global efforts to achieve gender equality and empower women and girls worldwide. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Khalkha River. Historic records indicate that all sides suffered significant losses. However, the exact number of casualties remain uncertain and unconfirmed to this day. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Khalkha River, which took place between May and September 1939 near the Khalkha River in Mongolia. 4 countries were involved, resulting in over 50,000 casualties. The Mongolian People's Revolutionary Army suffered 990 losses, while Japan and the Soviet Union had around 20,000 and 25,000 casualties, respectively. However, researchers believe these figures may differ from reality, as damage assessments at the time were based on rough verbal estimates. During the time of the Khalkha River War, the Soviet Union got its information about casualties of other sides through combat intelligence workers. They were fixed spies on the railways from the Khalkha River to Manchuria. What they did was they approximated the number of casualties, and that information would be reported to the officers. Although it's considered very far from reality, the information we have from the records is authentic. This battle, which occurred on the territory of the Khalkha River, involved the largest number of weapons and equipment ever seen. It's believed that the parties involved may have inflated or downplayed the extent of the weapons and technical damage to serve their interests.
The parties involved in the Khalkha River War experienced significant losses in both personnel and military equipment. Reports indicate that the Soviet forces lost 250 tanks and 267 planes, while it was believed that Japan had lost 608 planes. However, contemporary Japanese sources have revised these figures, reporting that their actual losses were 162 planes and approximately 100 tanks.
All parties involved in the battle experienced significant losses. The Soviet Union and the Mongolian forces sustained the most casualties on May 28, 1939, the day the conflict began. The thousands of Japanese soldiers were killed in the Battle of Bayinsarang Mountain, and researchers believe that the Kwangtung Army suffered the heaviest losses. In the battle, there were about 132,000 soldiers, around 1,000 tanks and 800 planes involved from the other party. The result of this war was a mass loss of human lives. Researchers of the Military History Center are digging archives from many places to better estimate the losses. In 1946, Mongolia submitted a note to the Far Eastern Commission demanding 321.1 million MNT, or approximately $80 million at the 1945 exchange rate, as were reparations from Japan. The damage inflicted by Japan between 1935 and 1936 included 33 casualties in terms of manpower and 11,390,000 MNT in material losses. In the 1939 Battle of the Khalkha River, Mongolia lost 731 people and 60,732,000 MNT in equipment. The total losses from the 1945 War of Liberation amounted to 124 people and 195,178,000 MNT. Summing up all the losses, the best-known figures are 888 people, 267,301,083 MNT, and 82 Munk. It's unlikely that these war damages can be fully compensated financially. The impact of war cannot be replaced by monetary compensation, as the emotional scars borne by those who endured the conflict and witnessed the aftermath on their land remain irreplaceable. You're watching News Mongolia. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for Mongolia and the world major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.